Well, you could say we are down to the entrails, although that might induce in people some not so savory imagery, given the nature of the topic. The March for Life has been happening in Washington over the last several hours. Their permit till 4 o'clock this afternoon is just about up, which means most people are trailing off and heading back to their daily lives. It's very interesting every time this happens in Washington. It's a very distinct vibe to folks who come out to this protest relative to the other protests. I would be curious if there is anybody who is in like the middle of the Venn diagram, people who attend both the standard fare intersectional DC protests on behalf of Palestine and No Kings and trans rights and Black Lives Matter and all that kind of stuff, and also the March for Life. I'm wondering if I'm the only person that fits in the middle of that Venn diagram. And so it is just the trailings of people. Lots of people in coordinated shirts, coordinated hats, groups from churches across the country. I would imagine this year's march was a little bit more lightly attended than in past years. It's not a big presidential election year. It's not the beginning of the new exciting administration. Last year it was, I guess, must have been right around the inauguration. Can't remember. We did live stream it in earnest last year. And there's also a big snowstorm that is expected to come through Washington here in the coming day or two, and even a small storm in Washington tends to shut the city down for months at a time. But you can see the crowds here. Demographically, not to draw too many generalities, but it's a lot of clean-shaven white people. A lot of teens. So a lot of people from their church groups, things like that. Love life, choose life. I was looking at the materials for this earlier, trying to figure out when they would be where, and it was kind of like this year's theme is going to be like choose life. I was like, isn't that the theme every year? Isn't that the whole premise behind the whole thing? That it's like isn't the whole shtick that it's like pro-life? I don't know. But it was some kind of theme this year that was about choosing life, or loving life, or living life, living love, loving to live a loving life of love and living. And we are going against the grain here, aren't we?
Not from God. There's nothing good in it.
I feel like I'm swimming up the salmon ladder.
Idea.
Yeah.
As we head up here in the direction of the Supreme Court. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us on Land Speculation on YouTube. If you wouldn't mind dropping a like and a subscribe in the video, appreciate that. The likes help us out with YouTube. Subscribe so you guys know when we're on. Check the description that has links to our Discord, which you're free to join, and our Duck Fund is our Buy Me a Coffee link. You can also drop a super chat if you'd like. We also have a link to our sister channel, Land Ducks International, for live, raw footage and walkthroughs of interesting things and places.
Alrighty then.
I can find one for you on the sidewalk.
Well, I can see the logic. I like.
Yes, that's an astute observation. It looks like I'm going in the wrong direction. Look at those Texas flags over there. Some Texans. I'm actually going in the right direction. It's just that it's almost over and so everybody's leaving. So I don't know if there's going to be anything there when we get there, or if we will have missed it entirely. But I unfortunately had obligations today and therefore couldn't be here for most of it. So we did stream the whole thing, or at least most of the whole thing last year. They had a big event this morning for matching hat people. Lots of red hat people, not the MAGA hats, like the red wool hats.
He's in the Knights group chat.
Oh,
He's a Knight?
Oh, he's a knight.
Brother Knight.
Oh, I remember seeing this.
I guess the whole street is blocked off, which means in theory we could walk down the middle of the street as these people are cutting across. It is interesting that this seems to be a very law-abiding crowd, as I recall. Like, the second their permit's up, they're gone. And even with the streets blocked off, I think there's like a hesitancy of people to walk in the street because it just feels like that would be violating the rules. So we're walking up here on Capitol Hill. As you can see, the crowd's thickened. As the crowds disperse. It's a bit of an odd march because everybody like marches and then they all end in the same place. So there's kind of a lot of pressure as everyone just bubbles up against the same end point.
What happens to brain?
So it gets very crowded. They wrap it up at the Supreme Court, where I don't know. I thought that I guess there's always more that people push for. Like, nobody's ever satisfied on their cause. Whenever anybody's achieved anything, there's no okay, now we've done it, great. There's always okay, now we achieved that step. Let's keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And there's always somebody that wants something more intense in terms of policy. And overturning Roe versus Wade, I guess, was a big achievement.
I don't know.
For the pro-life movement, but clearly not enough, because otherwise you wouldn't have this many people out continuing to clamor yet for more. I don't know what the push is now. Like, it seems like the police are like trying to gradually push people down the way. Lots of police on bikes doing crowd dispersal. Okay, various churches around the country. We've got Knights of Columbus groups.
Want to get a picture for the debate club? Sure.
The debate club, okay.
I mean, you're going to be yes. We are here today.
Yeah, they're really, this is the Supreme Court here on our left. They're really dispersing us now at this point. The Capitol building is over there, ominously. There's like a big cloud raining down on the Capitol building right now. I don't know what that says. It's like a message from God.
It's natural for guys to have that.
It makes me think.
It's a giant stack of flags there, man. Because I will get to your comments here and I get a moment away from the crowds, but
No way!
I don't know. How's the reception, by the way? Kind of in the middle of a lot of people right now. Usually that virtues our reception.
And God himself reached down into that pit. Like David said in Psalm 40, he lifted me out of the pit, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on a rock. And he is that rock. The amazing thing for me is that all that time I was shaking my fist in God's face, he still loved me. He still forgave me. I had another moment of truth when I was working as a nurse and I had a patient miscarry. And I held her little 10-week baby in my hand. And it wasn't just tissue. It was a baby with fingers and toes. I knew then that I needed further healing. So I completed the Forgiven and Set Free Bible study at Life Choices of Memphis. And I am here to tell you today that I am forgiven and set free. Yes. Now I have the privilege of helping other women find the same healing. If you're one of those women, God wants you to walk in freedom. It was purchased for you on the cross when Jesus paid the penalty for our sin. Okay.
So I guess these folks are offering testimonials here.
If you are one of those women, seek out the people with resources. There is healing, and there are people that can help you. Thank you.
Okay, this is like a counter protest over there. The abortion is healthcare lady.
Hi, I'm TJ, and over 20 years ago, I had two
I'm sure that went over well with the
because I
large
lacked
crowd.
emotional, relational, or financial support. Most
But
of
I guess
all,
that was probably her
I lacked
point.
the courage to do my body. And instead of trusting God and in my circumstances, I gave in to fear. My first abortion was a surgical abortion, which was agonizing.
This is very good, like, dinner party conversation. Everyone tells stories about their abortions.
Without ever confronting it, I chose to come years later.
Yes, they're actually Oh, I'm sorry.
This this is like the very tail end of the March for Life. Pretty much almost nobody passed this intersection. You see the police are pretty fervently trying to get people off of the streets to move out of the area. The permit is over here. Oh, within a few minutes the permit will be over, which means they will be, I guess, obligated to force reopen the streets. Probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people here a little bit ago. The police doing their standard crowd dispersal stuff here on bicycles. It's the Capitol with the ominous light overhead, clouds. Sign saying, make more babies. Make more babies. Well,
Grace and mercy healed wounds I never thought would come.
I mean, fair enough. The making of the babies is the fun part. It's everything that comes after that that takes a little bit more work.
I'm here to testify that the love of Jesus covers a multitude of sins, and that in Christ there is no I told Adriana I want to hear
We don't need your prayers. We don't need your prayers. You're my First Amendment thing. So you go do your First Amendment thing with your
are incredibly powerful. And we know that because they would not be over there trying to drown out the sound of our voices if our voices didn't matter.
That's a blasphemy.
My first job was doing my I was 19 years old and I fought for his life.
Well, what a scene.
Nothing that I said, nothing that I thought. I'll speak
Abortion creeps up in the electorate every few years. Sometimes we get elections where abortion is not front and center, and other times it becomes a major driving thing. And for some people, it really is their issue. And clearly, some who are for it. Screaming lady behind us. Some who are clearly against it, like the crowd gathered here, offering testimonials at the Supreme Court.
Because I broke my silence in treatment and was able to begin to heal. I'm now a retired attorney, married with 5 amazing children, and I run a national nonprofit called Men for Life. Ladies and gentlemen, we are told that abortion is a women's issue, that it doesn't affect men. But last year, 1.162 million babies were aborted. That's 1.162 million fathers who lost sons and daughters. And most were told to stay silent. The unfortunate reality is that men as a whole have been shouted down for over 53 years, to the point that even pro-life men have succumbed to being silent or passively pro-life. We go to the marches, we go to the fundraisers, the pro-life social events, we write the checks, but abortion is not a women's issue. Abortion is a spiritual issue. Abortion is a human issue. It affects every single one of us. Men were created to protect, to provide, to lead, to serve, and to leave a legacy that honors God. We cannot fulfill these masculine roles if we remain silent while 1 million babies a year are slaughtered. Abortion is a spiritual war, and 90% of those actively fighting day in and day out are women. And if we as men have consigned ourselves to sit back and write checks to fund a war that we send our women off to fight, then we are failing in our own masculinity. Men cannot be silent. Fathers cannot be silent. We cannot be passive. Men, you cannot sit this one out. For our children, for their mothers, and for our own healing. And that is why I'm standing here today, calling all men to step into their role as protectors of the most innocent, to break their silence, and to take action to fight to end abortion. That is why I am silent no more.
Hello, my name is Anne. I am visiting from Canada. This is a portrait of my daughter, Emma Heather Rose, my friend Michelle Drew. I have a poem. I miss my little daughter who was in my belly, and then I let the doctor kill her and take her out because of how I wasn't sure, and I didn't have much money. And the dad and his family said I could choose. I made a terrible choice, said with a hiss on the S. I was in no position to make. And it just gets worse every year, more tender. I think of her reality inside me and now dead and outside me. I don't like that many women are having their babies killed in their bodies at the point when those babies are called different names, like fetus, which means offspring in Latin, which is a word for child. Our children spring off from us. Now, what do you think I think of women's rights? I want the right for my child to be protected, valued, and loved. I want the right to be honored with marriage before I make love. I want the right to be cared for, and my children too, a strong man saying, I will protect and care for you. Because with a strong provider man, women can have a lot more babies. And do you know what those babies are? They are joyful. They laugh and they look just like their moms and dads. Continuity. Does me saying all of the above make you cringe or even rage? Well, it won't change the truth of the grief for the rest of my days. An aching emptiness, and yet what a grace silver lines the cloud. I love my child to the extreme uttermost that is allowed. Spiritual bonds cannot be broken by the prince of the air. He deceives only while we are here, and if we dare to make those deals with him. O devil, thou hast stolen my child. In the name of an ambition that I felt so loud. I didn't want my body to change. I wanted to sleep in. I wanted to be a famous singer. Hopping from one gig to another, I wanted my shoe size to stay the same. Oh dear, what a loss when we act as though to gain. What fear whispered in my ear led to this unending pain. And yet to heaven bound on a narrow path, now I pray to see her again. My little Emma Heather Rose, in your laughter, by me as yet unheard, is a joy only God knows. Thank you.
Oh. Lady who, I guess, had an abortion and now regrets it.
This is Esther.
And dearly misses her never-born daughter.
Esther was actually part of our original first Silent No More events in 2003. So there's been a lot of
pro-abortion protesters.
We've all done a lot of work. So I'm very proud of your work. God bless you. That was, Oregon, as a matter of fact. I had an abortion because I wanted to hide my sexual activity from my mother. She was so proud of her virginity before marriage. And though I waited until 18, I didn't measure up, but I was highly influenced by the culture in 1984. During the abortion procedure, I remembered screaming in my head with pain, thinking she lied to me. A woman behind a desk told me that it was just a blob of tissue, and most girls just feel a pinch, and she gestured on her arm like it was nothing. I asked about the baby stage of development, and she told me it was just a blob of tissue. Immediately after the abortion, even though hardly ready to leave the table, they needed it for somebody else, and I walked gingerly, and they placed me on a cot to rest. I felt an incredible loss. A piece of me was missing. I wasn't the same, and suddenly severely depressed. As time went on, I kept wanting to share my feelings with people I trusted. My friends didn't listen, and I heard, "It's done, it's in the past. Put it behind you and move on." I turned to drugs and alcohol to numb my emotional pain, and then I shoved those feelings down deep until they came out in bitterness. And years later, I found hope through a healing program called Forgiven and Set Free, which this one was a Bible study, and that fit my background. And together, in a small group with 5 other women who met weekly in a safe and confidential environment, I was finally freed to grieve and bestow dignity to my unborn child, and my life changed dramatically. And now I love to help women who are hurting to find hope and healing. And that's why I'm Silent No More. All right. And Deb Tilden is our regional coordinator from Montana.
Hello, Deborah Tilden from Smart Women's Healthcare. In 1980, as a young, engaged, scared, terrified, misinformed young woman, my husband and I chose to end the life of our first child. She has a name. At the time, abortion is a relationship decision, and we chose. Over the years, God has showed us this, that we chose to not have a relationship with that child. She has a name. It's Guinevere Rose, and I have a poem to read. There are so many children here, not one of them the same, all just waiting patiently to hear someone say their name. Won't you go and find them, Mommy? Help them let go of their shame. Let them know their children are here waiting to be claimed. They know we belong to our Abba. Much joy in his presence we gain. But they still long to hear their mommy calling out their name. They see their hidden sadness and their silent but heavy pain. They want them to know that they are loved and that Jesus has washed away their stain. Won't you go and find them, Mommy? Now that you know the joy I bring, tell them how you see me dancing and how you hear me sing. I have always loved you, Mommy. I long to give you joy, not pain. I knew you would remember me someday. I knew you would say my name. We cannot leave these babies unnamed. I pray that the women suffering in silence will come forward. There are so many amazing healing ministries. Go to the Silent No More website and find your healing. There is hope and healing, and that's why I'm Silent No More.
Wow.
Okay.
What poems? People that have, I guess, aborted their unborn children and regretted it. Again, all like right across from this pro-abortion protester with the super duper everything flag there. It's like Black Lives Matter plus the inclusion DEI pride flag. And they've got music blasting to try to like their voices. Obviously, there were thousands of people here before. Lots of signs left. And we missed most of it. We've been here for a little bit. Pitching the end of all this as the stragglers drift away here. The permit is basically over for the March for Life. And so everyone's been ushered back to wherever they came from, which is all over the country. From churches all over America come out to this event.
The family. And by outlawing abortion,
The guy that wants to keep abortion legal. I've got to guess this whole event was smaller this year than it was last year, or in years when abortion was a more front and center issue politically, and there were more political stakes on the table electorally. just feel like abortion, having popped up and been really big in 2022 and 2024, has at least momentarily
Yeah, Freddie B. Drick.
drifted back a little bit.
Take a light jog back.
Lots of matching shirts and sweatshirts and things like that among various folks. I mean, it's probably like, it is the kingpin issue of Rorschach test issues. Because
Safe travels.
depending on how you frame the issue, people on both sides of the abortion debate view it as a foundational ethical issue about what kinds of things we fundamentally value as a society. And there are people that look at that and retroactively impose the view from the future onto the present and think goodness gracious, imagine what people are going to think in 1,000 years when they look back at our society, and the society was, and we by the millions every year, we're literally butchering babies, and you can imagine how much that riles people up. That's your outlook. It's that's foundational, it's fundamental, that's the basic ethics of a society. It's literally about mass murder of children. And then there's the people who hold the view on the other side of the table, who believe equally, in some cases more fervently, that abortion is foundational as well in terms of what our society says about whether or not it respects the fundamental human dignity of women and women's health and women's bodies, and whether or not women are able to make choices, to have control over the things that are happening and growing within themselves. And there's a sense of how dare somebody, affiliated with some church somewhere, try to impersonally dictate control over my fundamental sense of self. And that, for those people, becomes not just an issue, but something that is foundational and fundamental to everything that as a society we hold and believe. So it's an issue like no other. Riles people up in ways that no other issue quite does. And no matter what the law is, no matter what the seeming actual options are on the table for changing the various legality or jurisdiction over the legality of abortion, every few years it pops up, and it, as a topic, as an issue, seems to kind of hijack elections. 2024 it rose up. 2022 it rose up in the aftermath of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. In 2022, abortion basically co-opted that entire midterm election, one the Republicans were supposed to win overwhelmingly. And because of the Supreme Court case, abortion suddenly rose up and riled people up all over the country and overturned the dynamics of that election. The Democrats very nearly kept the House. And so today in Washington, the March for Life, tens of thousands, hundreds, I think it's probably, I'm sure it's hundreds of thousands, many hundreds of thousands probably, of people came from churches all over the country to protest, to march, not so much protest, really a march against abortion, for life. And the like the theme of this year's March for Life was like, this year's theme was going to be choose life. It's like, isn't that the theme every year? But that was what was circulated, and so churches around the country showed up and they marched and went in signs and they sang and there was music and revelry and like kind of interesting camaraderie. It's a lot of teams that come out for this, and there's a lot of like networking clearly happening between them. I think a lot of people, depending on where you're from in the country, you know, if you're part of a church, sometimes like the people in your church are the only people who are in a church near you. And you know, if you're in a more secular part of the country, there just aren't many other people you can bond with on some of these topics. And I think for some of those kids, it's like, you know, suddenly they realize that like there's a whole, you know, despite all of the cultural pressures, all of the, you know, cultural, I don't know, it's like a sort of cultural disdain, at least in the kind of quote unquote mainstream culture, for Christianity. And certainly, you know, you would think if you listen to the mainstream media that abortion is an issue, like it's just a fundamental rights issue in which, you know, everybody with a soul supports abortion. And so I think for some of these kids to like to meet others who share their outlook, are part of churches, are serious about that, it's a unique thing. I know people that are, you know, that come out for this every year and like they get really excited about it. Waiting for a whole nother light cycle there. I was thinking about it as I was standing there, like there's a great intertwinedness to the anti-abortion messaging, pro-life messaging, and Christianity. Are those things necessarily intrinsically linked? In a lot of Europe, countries that are much more secular than this one, you have situations like countries that are much more secular than this one. You have more stringent abortion restrictions than you have in the United States. Back when this was a big issue a couple of years ago, we did a deep dive on this topic, and we examined, you know, the policies around the world. And I think one of the surprising revelations, I think it would be surprising to a lot of people in the United States who are constantly told by our media that, you know, we are some kind of barbaric society for having restrictions on abortion, that much of Europe, I mean most of the rest of the world has much more stringent restrictions on abortion than the United States does. And so clearly, like internationally, it is not necessarily something that is interwoven with Christianity exclusively. Like, there is a sort of base ethics. You don't have to like consciously be a Christian to be against abortion, or at least believe that abortion should be illegal past a certain point in a pregnancy.
Excuse me, sir. Which road hot?
See, very good salespeople there. They know what's up. They know what event is happening and which side's stuff they should sell today. They all have a stockpile of both. Capitalism trumps everything. They want to make money for themselves. You hear a lot about, you know, the occasional Christian denomination that's a little bit more liberal in its outlook. You got like Christians that are pro-abortion. But how often do you hear about the secular folks that are anti-abortion? Not very often. It's interesting, as we've been following the path of March for Life here, we also have the Gonzaga High School track team that's like running loops around the federal court here. it's one of these topics where very few people, like well under 10% of people, believe that abortion should be fully illegal. What the hell is this? Signage. This is a very pro-abortion tent of some kind. I don't know who. Behind this lovely messaging. I'm sorry guys, my chat was frozen. I did not realize there were actually comments in it. I've just been rambling because I figured no one was here. The chat was frozen, so I haven't seen the comments a little bit here. Anyway, it's good to see you guys. I know it's a weird time. The end of the workday on a Friday. I mean, abortion, it's one of those topics, like almost nobody believes it should be fully illegal. Almost nobody believes it should be fully legal up to the time of birth. And so clearly, it's like a perpetual, never-ending battle about where, as a society, we collectively set the boundary where we decide that, like, it should be and shouldn't be legal. Somewhere between, like, conception and birth, we decide that there's a reasonable cutoff when it goes from something that's like purely in a woman's rights bodily issue to something that becomes about the life of the baby. And where that middle ground is seems to be a perpetual struggle that many people make their top political issue and becomes the focal point that decides elections over and over and over and over and over again. Quiet Castle, how's it going? Viliginac, how's it going? Let's see. Is it Chanel Buzz? It's hard to read the faint, small gray text. Holly, why wouldn't abortion be murder? Well, you know, I mean, that's a position. It's like, abortion can be murder, and I guess you can be okay with it. I mean, I guess, like, being pro the legality of murder is a position one could hold. I don't think many people are going to agree with you on that. Pro-abortion people always forget or don't care about the life of the baby, says Quiet Castle. Yes, I think abortion should only be legal for rape, incest, and medical engagement or emergencies. That's just me. It's, you know, as quickly as they came, they've dispersed. So DC is back to being fully in the hands of the secularists. It is interesting when you get the pro-life parts. People, you know, shamelessly, they wear their MAGA hats. Hey, you know what kinds of risks you're putting yourself under, but you know, people gather here for marches and their causes. Well, we heard lots of testimonials there toward the end of people who had had abortions, regretted it, and missed their unborn children. They all had names for the unborn child. They had like pictures. They all had poems. They sort of written poems. Some of the poems were quite graphic and not actually that poetic, to their unborn children. And it's a little graphic. Like sometimes you hear about that stuff. You have to live with that, afterwards. And it's like, it gets to the very heart and soul of people because it's like literally something that grows inside the core of their body. And it's also like the fundamental right to exist of the baby. And it's like the mother's right to control her own body. Like it gets to things that people really care about. It's like, can we, like, I just wish people would like stop strawmanning and hyperbolically characterizing the morality of people. I don't know that anybody's like, there's this like perception among some. It's like the only reason you would be against abortion is because, or you support abortion limits is because you hate women and you want to control them. Like, I don't know if there are really that many people that have that sentiment. And then conversely, there are people that are like, I want to murder babies. And I do think on the late night culture, late night TV culture, the sort of New York City culture, there's a sort of casual pride around abortion that is a little disturbing at times. But look, it's a complicated, hairy issue. It's an issue that people are going to have to settle for some kind of you're not going to satisfy everyone here. It's not going to simultaneously be both fully illegal and fully legal at the same time. You're going to have to pick a middle ground. And that's what we're going to have to roll with as a society, because there's not a clean answer to it. The way that babies get made is a little bit messy. Like, we try to make society in this neat and tidy little bow. And it's not that. The pro-abortion people also ignore the rights of the father. Well, there was one of the speakers was talking about that, is that 90% of the discourse on the abortion topic is by women on both sides of the issue. And his point was like, every year, what was it? There's 1.62 million abortions, some number like that. Might be higher, I don't know. But every time there's an abortion, there's a baby, a prospective baby that is one sex or the other, that loses its life. There's the mother, and there's the father. Every time an abortion happens, a father loses their prospective child as well. So, what about the men? This is a relationship decision, or so would say the people who were there at the march today. Some buses. Lots and lots of buses, and there's a big snowstorm that's coming into DC this weekend, so I'd imagine people are trying to get the hell out of here pretty fast. A little bit less at Thomas More College in Kentucky. People from all over the country trying to get out of here fast. A little bit less fervor and length to this event, I think, than in past years. And of course, we missed most of it, but hopefully we got a little taste of it. Village and Eck. Women not understand why a knight not marries having a child with a different father. Okay, so that's like a separate issue. That's like single mothers not, they don't get swiped on as much in the dating pool. That's a thing. A lot of men, I don't necessarily want to be raising another man's child. Lots of flights going to be canceled. So I was going to travel this weekend and early next week, and probably for the best that didn't happen. I actually just got back from some significant traveling. Where it was not snowing. In fact, it was very warm where I went. Which seems like it'd be nice, except that I was staying amidst parking lots and strip malls, i.e. Castle's abode, sort of same part of the country ish. So I don't know, did we solve the abortion issue here today at March for Life? Did we? I mean, I guess like Roe versus Wade is overturned. It's in the hands of the states now. It's one of these issues, like with any issue, there's the activists for the issue. They'll never, ever, ever believe that whatever they've achieved is enough. And sometimes I think there are things where it's like, we've achieved what we need to achieve on the issue. Let's move on. But there are always people who are going to push further and further and further and further. And I guess if you, like, for folks that are like, really, abortion is your issue, you really believe it's barbaric and it should be fully illegal, I guess you're willing to sacrifice other political aims. It costs Republicans a lot in elections when they invest in significant anti-abortion campaigns. And, those societies, there's a lot of things going on in society. It seems like, communism is going to be on the ballot here in 2028, which is a pretty big thing. Anyway, appreciate the likes and subscribes on the videos. Not the video. I mean, all the videos, but this video as well. When we've been away, we're trying to get more stuff up on the days when we're not streaming. Just normal videos. So hopefully that content is interesting-ish. Reading the numbers, trying to see what's working, what's not. But any feedback is great. The likes help us out with YouTube. The subscribes so you guys know when we're on. As always, check the description. There's links to our Discord and our Duck Fund. And our sister channel, Land Ducks International. So, it is international here, says Village Knack. I don't know what that means. Guys, I appreciate it. I'm going to wrap this up for now because clearly the march is over. And so our march will now be over. Appreciate Quiet for jumping on here, doing a little bit of modding. Let's see if anybody else popped in from the mod cohort. And then all you guys for hanging out with us here a little bit on a middle of the afternoon-ish kind of thing here on a Friday evening, maybe. Appreciate it. We have a winner. Winner is Village Knack. Well-deserved. Village Knack's been hanging with us here for most of the affair. Village Knack wants to go make a Prego. All right. So, you saw the signs. Signs said make more babies. Go forth. Flourish. Reproduce yourselves with another person. And make humanity multiply and prosper. Closing message for you. All right, appreciate it, guys. Don't be strangers. We'll be back. This is Land. It ain't just speculation. For now, I hope you all have a good evening.